Hello, good evening, good afternoon, and good morning. Welcome to Africa. Welcome to Connect Africa. But Africa also works, doesn't it? Because this is a Pan African platform. So, welcome to our session with 3 times a week with Kwame Gonza, where we bring hot issues in the continent or outside of the continent. If it impacts us, where he gives us, where he spills all the tea, the historical background, what's happening, and what is going to happen. Welcome, Kwame. So for today, our topic is the one we started before and kind of interrupted with technical problem. The topic being the Nigerian government that cancelled the Air Nigeria and Ethiopian Airlines partnership. So how are you today? Welcome. Are you ready for this to go through this?
Thank you very much, Mahlet. I pray that today the network will be very good and it will not interrupt us so that we can enjoy this program very well with our viewers. And I want to greet everyone who's watching us. We welcome you to the channel. We appreciate you. We don't take your presence on this channel and watching us for granted. So we do appreciate the fact that you're supporting the channel. This is not easy. Many people are not doing this and they're not looking for the right information. This is where you find the right information. As Malit has said, we are not here for clickbait, but we are here to put, as they say, if you are building a house, you put bricks or blocks, and then the wall comes on top. So we are trying to put a brick on the house of Africa. We are building the house of Africa. So we are putting our contribution to that house until it is finished. So that means that we have to touch on all topics that affect this continent, whether it is aviation, whether it's automotive, whether it is resources, whether it's the social issues. So everything we touch it here on Connect Africa. So that is the very reason why you have to stay on this channel and invite other people and support us in whatever we are doing. So yeah, as Malit has said, we are going to touch on the issue of Nigeria Air, which was supposed to be re-established. Nigeria had the intent of re-establishing its, flag carrier or national carrier, which collapsed in 2003. I think it collapsed in 2003. But there was, issues of sharing these airlines and communication, of course, within the Nigerian government itself and its, legislature committee, Nigerian Parliament. So these are the one things which we want to look through. What happened really that this arrangement was scrapped by the House of Representatives committee, which sat last year in June. They scrapped the arrangement and they said that this arrangement should be put to a break. And of course, Ethiopia Airlines waited for some time until recently when it came out to speak on it, almost a full year from when this committee sat and it put a stop on these arrangements. And of course, as we are going to see, Ethiopia Airlines, of course, has huge experience in the industry, and so it would make sense to have Ethiopia Airlines help Nigeria to re-establish itself because we are brothers, we are Africans, all of us. So if Nigeria wants to succeed where it failed first, then it needs somebody who has succeeded in that area. So these are the things which we want to, sift it through. We want to turn it around and look at it from all sides so that we can be able to understand what really happened and what is the way forward, of course, for us. So with that being said, I want to give it back to you, Malit. I want to give you back the microphone so
Okay.
that we can move forward.
Thank you, Kwame, for shedding light and greetings our audience here. And reminding them once again, as you are connected with us, you make sure that you go ahead and share the video. Now, of course, we are bringing you a fact-based, well-researched analysis here, but I want you to put this on the back of your head so that you know when we talk about Ethiopian Airlines, what it means. Now, Ethiopian Airlines is the biggest airlines in the continent. It has been for many years, year after year, has been rewarded being the best airline in Africa. And and one of the few actually globally. This airline is 78 years young. Let me say that because it just gets bigger and wider and more ambitious. And connecting more and more African cities. It flies to 63 African cities, and globally it has a destination of about 165. But every week, almost we hear from Ethiopian Airlines adding one more African cities or one more global cities, connecting not only Ethiopians but Africans. It's called as the hub of Africa, in fact. So now the airline has a share of 45% in Zambia, 99% of Mozambique, Aska Airlines of Togo, 25.2% or almost 26%. Malawi Airlines, it has 49%. Chad Airlines, 49%. And the one which was supposed to be Air Nigeria, it was 49%. And it was working on Congo Air and South Africa, but South Africa is not given, unfortunately, or sadly, I may say, to Qatar. So these are the things I really want you to keep in mind. And with that, we go to our questions for today. So Kwame, Ethiopian Airlines being the biggest, and actually its biggest customers are from Africa, other than Ethiopians themselves, are Nigerians, using it to connect. Now, when that partnership news came, we said, wow, the best, this is what, it's the perfect match. And because Ethiopian Airlines knows its passengers and, it has been operating there for long. How did we get here now that this is cancelled? Tell us the background story of the relation in general between ET and Air Nigeria or the government itself.
Thank you, Mahlet. I hope you can hear me very well.
Yeah, yeah.
I hope you can hear me clear. Okay, thank you so much. Let me just go back to understand Nigeria's aviation sector and, of course, the issue of Nigerian airlines. And of course, we have Nigeria. We are going to differentiate here two things. We have Nigeria Air, which which they wanted to revive recently, and then we have Nigeria Airways, which is the defunct. So these are two different things. This is something which I want people to understand clearly. And then of course we have a player here, another player who is Ethiopia Airlines. Ethiopia Airlines is a very old airlines which was formed after World War II in 1945. That is when Ethiopia Airlines was formed. And as Mahlet has given us the history, is the biggest airlines, in the continent. That is why even Ethiopia, many people call it the aviation capital of the African continent. It is not only the administrative capital of the African continent because it has the headquarters of the African Union, but it is also the aviation capital of the African continent because that is where we find the most successful, most profitable, and the biggest airline on the continent. Now, he's one of the players. Ethiopia Airlines is one of the player in this arrangement that we are going to discuss. So it is very important for me to define these three players when we are going into this discussion. Nigeria Air, which is the new enterprise that was supposed to be revived to be the flag carrier for Nigeria. We have Nigerian Airways. We have Nigeria Airways, which is defunct. So we have Nigeria Air, the new. We have Nigeria Airways, the defunct, and then we have Ethiopia Airlines, which was going to be the operator because, of course, of the reasons which we are going to see later. And of course, we have the government of Nigeria, and then there was also a group of private sector individuals who wanted to invest in this arrangement. Now, the desire for Nigeria to have an airlines or a carrier, came when independence dawned. You see, when independence dawned on us here in Africa, starting in the 60s, of course, we have Ghana, which got its independence in 1957. Many of the African countries wanted to get an airline, a flag carrier, all right? A flag carrier or a national carrier, all right? So they thought that having a national carrier, in form of an airline, was a symbol of sovereignty because it flew to all countries and then it had your flag. All right. So this was in addition to flags and anthems and all these. So they saw it. Many of the African countries saw it as a symbol of sovereignty. So that is what they thought. So, in fact, I would venture to say that this was a mistake for many African countries because many of them did not have the money. They did not have enough money to run these enterprises. All right. They did not have enough money to run these businesses because you need huge capital to pour into an airlines. The committee, the committee, the representative committee on aviation in the Nigerian parliament actually came out and said that to establish an airline, you need about $250 million. $250 million. So it's a lot of money. This is a quarter of a billion. All right. So I would venture to say that it was a mistake for African countries which did not have money to pour huge sums of money into each of them having an airline. All right, because they did not have the capacity. Many of them, they did not even have the capacity, as in in form of human resources, not only the ability to sustain them. And the other fact is that they were going to compete against each other. So it was not feasible. It was not feasible. Then we asked who benefited. Who benefited? Where as they were setting up these airlines, who was benefiting? It was the United States. Why? Because it was only America, it was only the United States of America that had the manufacturing capacity of aircraft. Even Europe was not manufacturing aircraft. Most of the manufacturing of aircraft was coming from the United States. So the United States would use the newly created Bretton Woods institutions like the IMF and the World Bank to give these countries money, and they will turn around and buy the aircraft from the United States. As we know, the International Monetary Fund, which is lost by many people even today, that people, they don't want it in their countries, but to the politicians, to our politicians, to our heads of state, the IMF has almost become like a necessary evil, that is an evil they cannot do away with. So it would lend money to these countries, and actually it is the United States which puts majority of the money in the IMF. Now the United States would put money in these institutions, the IMF, and our heads of state, or our leaders, would go in there and borrow the money and buy the aircraft from the United States itself. So the United States would use this to create jobs, all right, for its people. And then these people would now, these Africans or these countries, these newly created countries, now would pay interest on these monies which we have borrowed. So here is the trap that I was saying, that I was talking about, that is the United States which actually benefited, because the money would not even come to our countries. The money just circulated from the hands of the World Bank, and it went back to Boeing, and it went back to McDonnell Douglas, and others, and other aircraft manufacturers of that time who were there. Okay, so McDonnell Douglas would later merge with Boeing to become, a super big enterprise as we see today. So this money did not come to Africa. Now, Nigeria was among those countries in the 1960s who went to borrow money to start these airlines. Okay, so it formed the Nigeria Airlines in 1968. And of course, as we mentioned, Ethiopia Airlines was formed in 1945. But unlike Ethiopia Airlines, which was run well and survived amidst the collapse of many of the airlines in Africa, like those of Ghana, Ghana Airways, which was formed by Dr. Kwame Nkrumah when he came to power. Uganda Airways also collapsed. And then we have like the predecessor in East Africa, who was the East Africa Airways. This was formed after the East African community tried to come together. This one also collapsed. All right. And it is from this collapse of the East African airways that we got the Kenya Airways, and then Uganda set up its own Uganda Airways by Idi Amin. Okay, and then Tanzania Air, or also Tanzania Air also collapsed, and we are seeing that Tanzania Air also is just being revived. All right, so
Salima is now reviving it. She's and Uganda also.
yes, Uganda too is now reviving, and Tanzania Air also, is reviving. So Nigerian Airlines too collapsed due to poor management by individuals who did not run this enterprise very well. Some of them ran it as if it is their own personal businesses, as if it was their personal business, overstaffing, and all these problems. Now, here I want us to distinguish between two things: individuals running a public enterprise as if it is their own, and of course, in one way or the other, there may be existing government interference. It should be differentiated between the inefficiency of private enterprises and public enterprises. All right. Public enterprises do not succeed not because they are not supposed to succeed or because there's no way of making them succeed, but it is because private individuals decide to run them down like that. Okay, because competent people are not put in there. So there should be a difference. As we have mentioned, Ethiopia Airlines is a fully state-owned enterprise, but is successful. It has become successful. All right, it's one of the most successful enterprises in the continent. All right, and even in the world. That's why it has been able to survive from 1945 up to right now, and is still going strong. Okay, so I wanted us to break this spell also clearly during this, presentation. We have to break this spell, this thinking, this neoliberal thinking that the state cannot own things, because we are Africans, and as a platform, Connect Africa, these are the things which we are trying to break. We are trying to break these chains which have been put on our minds. Many people now, they have a mindset that the state cannot run things. And for us here, this is something we dispute. This kind of neoliberal thinking, we dispute it. We do not believe in it, because we have seen countries like Singapore run with state power. Okay, in Singapore, 25% of the land is owned by the state. All right. In China, many state enterprises have succeeded. In the United States itself, whenever it needs, it comes up with the power of the state and intervenes in the markets, like how we are seeing today that the United States, ever since Joe Biden came to power, that he's been led or he's been guided by his strategist, industrial strategist or economic strategist, who's Jake Sullivan, who's the security advisor, national security advisor to the White House, who's Jake Sullivan. Now they are using the power of the state, and they are passing bills where they give the state power. Bills like the CHIPS Act, the Inflation Reduction Act. All this is the power of the state. So we have to break this spell that has been put on the minds of us Africans, that the state cannot run things. The state can run things because the people who run these institutions, even when the state sells them, as the IMF has been forcing many African countries to sell them, even if they sell them, the people who run them, they don't come from the moon. They are human beings. So I think that we have to find a way of running these institutions which are started with public money, like, for example, Ethiopia Airlines, how it has been able to succeed. So I wanted to make that point clearly, because it is very important. Now, there's private individuals within Nigeria Airlines that destroyed the company, that overstaffed the company. And of course, there was some interference. And then you remember that Nigeria also had a lot of problems during that period. There was a lot of coups, up and down. People are running. We have the Biafra war. So a lot of problems. So it is unlikely that this enterprise would have survived. So it was not only a mismanagement, but also, the instability in the country. So it is very difficult. It was very difficult for the enterprise to survive. And of course, also there was wrong advice from the IMF. The IMF also started intervening. Okay, it started intervening, and I would say that the IMF had, its own motives for intervening, because even when you have these enterprises that are successful, many of them on the continent, they become a threat to the West. All right, they become a threat to the West. So they want to be in the business by themselves, as we have seen in the past that Air Peace in Nigeria has also been complaining about British Airways. British Airways has been trying to play in a certain way that it pushes the prices of the tickets between Nigeria and Britain, so that Nigeria Air Peace can go out of business. All right, so there's those tactics which are used. So the IMF, as we know, is a continuation of the corporations in the United States. So it plays with them. Okay, whether they are coming to take over assets, whether they're coming to take over mines, it plays with them. Now, the IMF intervened also. It was one of the reasons why these airlines, collapsed, because of its advice and policies. So the debt had mounted for the airlines up to $500 million, and they led to the collapse of the airline. Now, in 2018, talks of reviving this national carrier, started, and they looked around at who is more credible, and they said, okay, let us call on Ethiopia Airlines to help us to revive this, airline, this national carrier. And so the Buhari government started these negotiations with Ethiopia Airlines. Okay, so during his last term in office, Ethiopia Airlines put up three Boeing, 737-8, and even one of them was presented to Nigeria when Buhari's government was closing in. Now, the arrangement of how this was to be done between Ethiopia Airlines and the government of Nigeria, and what the government presented as private investors. Okay, what the government presented as the investors, private investors who are going to invest in these airlines. I think that is another issue that we are going to answer. We are going to investigate, so that we can extricate Ethiopia Airlines from this whether it is chaotic situation, which the committee, the House of Representatives committee, came out and started investigating, because it did not understand how this arrangement came about, because the Nigerian parliament, I think it was not, contacted, or it was not sought. Its advice was not sought before any money was appropriated for the starting of this airline. So this is the process. This is the history, and how this airline, the government of Nigeria decided to see that it is revived, so that Nigeria can have a national carrier. Because for a country like Nigeria, which has been the biggest economy for the past few years, before its currency was devalued by the Tinubu government, and then Nigeria lost its position to the fourth position. It has been the biggest economy, and it's the most populous country. I think Nigeria too deserves to have an airlines, because it has the biggest number of billionaires even on the continent. So it's almost the biggest economy if the currency was not devalued. So I think Nigeria deserves that. It deserves to have an airline. So Nigeria Air is the name which was proposed uh, instead of Nigeria Airlines, because Nigeria Airlines is the one which was defunct and collapsed. So yeah, so that is the background of what happened with this situation that we are talking about.
Uh, Thank you, Kwame. I mean, that's yeah, more than enough background for us to understand. The Ethiopian Airlines, Air Nigeria, which is about to be created or reestablished, and the government of Nigeria. Its move, how it came to this decision. You kind of also touched what is, kind of the nature of the ownership. It looked like when they signed. Maybe unless you want to elaborate on that. And with that, if you can just add also, we have seen like spokesperson, like people, intellectuals, or from government officials coming and commenting on this and trashing this agreement ever since it was, signed. Can you comment on that? The kind of the partnerships. There are people who are criticizing it from Nigerians. So if you can elaborate on that, and if the reasons, maybe you can just revise it, the reason for collapse like ABC, then we can pick
Yeah,
this.
yeah. So the ownership structure actually, the shares, how the aircraft was going to be run, I think is actually very favorable, and it favors Nigeria mostly because when you look at the people who are pushing back a lot, like the Nigerian airlines operators, all right, the group of Nigerian air operators who are Nigerian, a group of Nigerian airlines. They have been mentioning, especially their spokesperson, Mr. Obiora Okonkwo. So he appeared on Arise News, which is a popular media platform in Nigeria, and claimed that there is nothing Nigerian about Nigeria Air. But when you look at the ownership structure, this is how it is. Ethiopia, I want people to pay close attention. Ethiopia Airlines was to own 49%. All right? Was to own 49%. And majority of the shares of this new airline, which is Nigeria Air, were to be owned by the Nigerians. All right? Were to be owned by the Nigerians. How? The Nigerian government was to own 6%. And then what they said in their agreement is that 45% was to go to private investors. So I think that what was not clearly understood is who are the private investors that are going to own the 45%, who are the Nigerian business people or the private business people. So I think that is where the situation became chaotic, identifying these people. So the reason I think that Ethiopia Airlines was chosen is because of its experience, and that is very clear. That is very clear. Is the most profitable airline. Is one of the most profitable in the world. Is the most profitable, on the African continent. It understands the African market very well. Okay, it understands the African market very well. So the other reason you can talk of, Ethiopia Airlines already has ventures, joint ventures with other airlines, as you mentioned, Mahlet. In Zambia with Zambia Airlines, you can talk of Malawi Airlines, you can talk of SK, okay, you can talk of Chad, Airways. So these are all successful airlines which are operating profitably ever since Ethiopia Airlines came into joint ventures with these people. So the allegation that this new airline is not Nigerian, there's nothing Nigerian about it. The facts are saying a different thing. It says that the facts are showing that 51% is Nigerian and only 49 is Ethiopian. So this is the ownership structure, and this shows that the ownership, the relationship actually favors Nigeria, and it lifts the burden of operating these aircraft, these airlines profitably, because what Nigeria has been suffering with is the operating. That's the problem. The management of the airlines. That's what Nigeria has been suffering with. All right, as a government. So if they lift this burden from you, and it's Ethiopia Airlines is the one who's handling everything, someone who knows already what they are doing, then definitely you should appreciate this. So I think that Ethiopia Airlines should instead have been appreciated. And the committee, the aviation, the committee, the representative committee on aviation in Nigeria should have instead concentrated on asking its government, scrutinizing this 51% and leave, Ethiopia Airlines out of this, this, arrangement, because for it was called and say that okay, everyone is going to put up this, everyone is going to do this, and Ethiopia Airlines is the one who's going to run the enterprise and is going to bring aircraft. Ethiopia Airlines is going to bring some of the aircraft and then going to do the running. So this is what I think that should have been the better way of handling it. But to answer your question, that is basically the ownership structure that was presented.
Thank you, Kwame, really for clarifying that because it was really important. Now you have said, you have given us the background of Ethiopian Airlines and what was on the side of the Nigerian government and even this Air Nigeria, what have been said on the media. Now, so what is the reason? What went wrong? How come it didn't work?
Yeah, so I think that so one time they were asking the late Charlie Munger, who was a partner to Warren Buffett. They were asking him about India, what he thinks about India, and whether India will be able to succeed to the same extent as China. And he said that uh, he doesn't see India succeeding as quick as China, simply because India, even though it has some of very smart people, just like China, even when you go to the United States, of course, you can see that Google is run by an Indian, Microsoft right now is run by an Indian. So all these big companies right now they are run by Indians.
They
But
even
the
take a
structure,
pride for it. They say they list it. I think I see somewhere viral on social media that like
yes,
we are
yes,
running the world.
most of them. Yeah, even the prime minister of Britain now is an Indian. So, but there's a problem of the governance structure. All right, you have a governance structure, and this is what we have been talking about, the system. All right, if you have a wrong system, regardless of how smart the people are, it will not work. The system will always push out to the smart people to the periphery. All right, and the criminals or the bad people, they're the ones who will always be at the center. That system will always, because the smart people, they don't really have time to for arguments. They want things to be done, do things straight. So Charlie Munger said that the Indian system is not suited for India to succeed. All right, because anyone can veto anything. All right, a group of people can come and sit in the road and say the trucks, the tractor will not make this road. Okay, so if and then they will say that they have the freedom to do that. Unlike in China it cannot be like that. That the government will just come and throw you out and they make the road. So development, you know, goes forward quickly. So while they are arguing in parliament in India, in China the road is being done and is being finished. All right. So this is what I see. Even is the problem in Nigeria. This is what I see, that the system, the governance system itself, as we have seen, is wrong. Is bad. So it doesn't suit. Things are not meant to succeed with this kind of system which Nigeria is running, and of course, majority of the African countries which they are running. It is not meant for us to succeed, and I think. PLO Lumumba is the one who has spoken about it, that the system which was engineered after colonization, after colonialism, after when we were given independence, or when we won independence in some cases, uh, was engineered to fail. African countries were engineered to fail, not to succeed. So all the countries which did not take make their own path, or which did not charter their own path, they were almost engineered to fail, because the imperialist powers were supervising them on what to do and directing them on where to go and stuff like that. So you can see this even today, that Dangote wants crude oil. Nigeria is one of the biggest producers of crude oil on the continent, but Dangote cannot get crude oil. Now the foreign companies, they have ownership of Nigerian crude oil. So they cannot give Dangote crude oil as he wants it. And then we have the state which supposedly represents the people, and even their parliament is there, or House of Representatives is there, but it cannot do anything to have Dangote get the oil which he needs to do the processing of the oil in the country. So, which is ridiculous. So, this is what it means that these systems were created for us not to succeed. Now, to come back to the Nigerian issue, a few months ago we saw, which I mentioned slightly, uh, we saw that the British Airways and all these European airlines like KLM decided to drop the prices to try to push out air peace out of the business on the route between Nigeria and Britain. All right, so we see that the these foreign airlines may be working behind. All right, there was problems which are internal problems, which I think that they should be separated from this relationship which Nigeria was trying to create with Ethiopia Airlines to create an airlines which is Nigeria Air. But the Nigerian government itself may have tried to work behind. Maybe there's some individuals within there who are trying to work behind, to maybe to own, let me say, the 45%, which is not the 6% which was supposed to be owned by the government. Maybe they wanted to do that using the Nigerian government, his money. And which I say that this, in such a situation, the Ethiopia Airlines should be put out of that kind of arrangement, because for it came with its offer, and then the government is also supposed to come, and Nigeria and the government, they are supposed to come with their offer on one side. So we see that on one side we have that problem, and on the other side we have the foreign airlines also, and then on another side, on a third side, we have the local businesses. We have local rich men within, who are the middle class within Nigeria, who have interest in the Nigerian aviation sector. They do not want competition. All right, they do not want the creation of another competition, and that's where that gentleman comes from, the Obiora Okonkwo. If you look at his arguments, even though he was speaking articulate, he was very articulate in speaking on Arise, which is a media platform, which I said major media platform in Nigeria. But what he was saying, everything he was saying, when you read through it, you can see his interest, because he represents the Nigerian Airlines operators. He was the spokesperson. So you could see exactly what he wanted. So this is the third part which I'm talking about, that they have interest in keeping, this out, keeping Ethiopia Airlines operating a second, airline out. They think that maybe he will eat all the profit. Ethiopia Airlines will take all the profit. So this is another problem which you can, I think, talk of, and you can see it when he said what he said. He said that there's nothing Nigerian about Nigerian Airways or Nigerian Air. Okay, the new Nigeria, airline which is trying to be revived, which is not true. All right, that is not true. The second thing which he said that, when you listen to him, I want people to go back to YouTube and listen to him, because that interview was done of him last year. The second thing which he said that the government should not be in business. Okay, that the government should just regulate. Now, this brings us back to this intellectual debate of the state and the private entities. Okay, the state and the private entities, the intellectuals, especially the people who have captured the economy. If you go back to Nkrumah's book, and you read in Nkrumah's book, which is called Class Struggle in Africa. Class Struggle in Africa, Nkrumah is just dividing groups. The groups, in Africa, we have the continent, and then he has divided the Africans in two groups. You have one group, the haves and the have-nots. So the the haves are dividing, they are isolating themselves because they are enjoying the fruits of the land. Okay, with who? With the imperialists, working with the imperialists. So they keep out the have-nots. So this is what Nkrumah calls class struggle in Africa. We have the rich, who are the intellectuals, and then we have the have-nots who have nothing, completely nothing. The people who are scraping and have nothing. So, and this is where, this is where we talk about, of course, income inequality and stuff like that. And these things, we can see them even in South Africa, that now the ANC, because the ANC is full of the haves, now they are allying with the DA and closing the door on the have-nots, who are represented by the EFF and the MK party. So instead of the ANC running towards the people, they have nots who have left it. Instead, they ran towards the haves, who is the DA, who already have. So this is the class struggle in Africa, which Nkrumah is talking about. Now, this gentleman, the spokesperson of the Nigeria, airlines operators, he represents the haves who wants to continue to hold on to what they have. And so you can see it in what he's saying, that his talk is that the government should not be in business, should only help them. Okay, should help them to run whatever they have. But in fact, when you look at it, when you look at the arrangement of the shares, the government is not in business, because, as I mentioned, the government was to own only 6%. It was not a majority owner in the enterprise. The government was not a majority owner. So the government was already not in business, as he was saying, because 45% was to be owned by Nigerians. All right. So how can he say that the government was in business? So you can see that even though he was speaking eloquently, he was eloquent, but the things he was saying, they don't make sense. Okay. And this is a problem, that sometimes you find people who can speak eloquently, and people think that these people are saying sense. But when you examine what they are saying, the things they are saying, they don't make sense at all. So this is what we are having as a problem, why this enterprise has come to, to collapse, because there's forces at play. Okay, we have the Nigerian government on one side, which is not transparent in how it wants to operate this enterprise with Ethiopia Airlines. And then we have the interests of this group, and this group of rich people who are individuals, who, a couple of them, they own airlines in Nigeria, and they are doing local routes, within the country, and then regional routes. Okay, so these people, they feel threatened by this enterprise. And so when the government was not transparent about how it wants to put back Nigeria Air, then these people, they got a chance. They used it as a chance to push back, because for them, they are not pushing back because of any reason which you can say, oh, this is a credible reason. But of course, they use that and they say, oh, Nigeria's money of the people, the public money, they use all that, they jump on that. So this is what I see that is in this situation, and what led to the Nigerian. And of course, the foreigners who I spoke about, also they have an interest in that. So you have foreigners. So you have also foreigners who have an interest in this, that they also want to, they may fear also Ethiopia Airlines to operate a second, airlines, because this is the biggest market. Nigeria is the biggest market. As everyone knows, Nigeria is the biggest market on the African continent. There's a lot of course, a number of reasonably rich people who use, air, for transport. So this is what I see in this kind of arrangement, and why the enterprise has not been able to succeed.
Thank you very much, Kwame, for that. I just put this just in case for people who wants to listen. This is it's about 18 minutes. This is where Okonko gives that interview. But if we have time, maybe we play 2-3 minutes out of it. But as a last question, and to add on your note, Ethiopian Airlines is an airlines actually who called for, African airlines to lower the cost of traveling because there is a need for to fly simply, and this has become a big problem. So because they know that they do a lot of connecting flight from different African airlines to the rest of the world, so to lower their price so that everybody can get the chance. And basically this is something useful and beneficiary if they work towards that. And there's a number of private airlines in Nigeria. How nice it will be if they unite and create something reliable for the Nigerian people.
I think there is Airpeace. Only that people have been complaining about the service on
I think
Airpeace,
there
but
is
I
more
think
than
it's
that,
trying.
more than two.
It's trying because it's a private. The gentleman who started it is a private airline, so I think they're. But even when it comes to the single Africa air transport market, which is being established or
Yeah,
which was
that was
started
my
by.
last question. So before you go there, then can you please comment on that one and how it will affect, the African continental free
Yeah,
trade
so
area?
if we're talking about the spirit of Pan-Africanism, I think Ethiopia Airlines coming in to help these airlines, whether it's Malawi, Zimbabwe. I mean, this is the true expression of Pan-Africanism. Okay, so if it comes in Nigeria, I think Nigeria should have struggled or should have ran to try to work with Ethiopia Airlines, because this is the true expression of Pan-Africanism if we are talking about Pan-Africanism. And this is what all the countries, majority of the countries in Africa, they signed on to this, the single, air transport market. Okay, they signed on to this, all of them, almost all of them, which is a project under Agenda 2063 of the African Union. So I think that if we cooperate, then it is good. But what you see that the committee, this committee of representatives on aviation in Nigeria, what it came out with as a recommendation is instead to appropriate more money, that Nigeria should run its own airlines, to put it back where they are saying, where they have even been saying it is inefficient, to appropriate instead of the 80, which was going to be appropriated like 85 billion naira, they want to appropriate 250 million dollars instead. So which is ridiculous, much more ridiculous, that they want to even to put more money, more of the taxpayers' money, so that it can be misused. So it would be definitely a defeat for the Africa single air transport market itself, which we are talking about, the single African air transport market under Agenda 2063 of the African Union.
Thank you very much, Kwame. I think we have covered enough as far as this topic is concerned. As you said, something, for the reason for this to fall or for it not to work is the previous government led by Buhari did not apparently present it through to the parliament. So that is something that remains to be investigated, and as there is a result, we come and present it to you. Thank you very much again, everyone, for coming here, for trusting us, for giving us your time, for engaging, for commenting, for asking again and again. We say we don't take it for granted. We appreciate each and every one of you. And let me start from the Yoruba land. Thank you. Definitely, yes, we trust you too, and you do trust us as well. That's why you are here. But thank you. You said how I am so proud of talking Ethiopian Airlines, but well, okay, I take that, but still, Ethiopian Airlines is something that is one national company that makes me proud, and it's a flag carrier for all of us. We can say yes, African states can run successful companies like Ethiopian Airlines, and it's a manifesto. It's something that we all can treasure, and we all. I remember. Kwame, I'm talking, so I'm reading the comments, and Yoruba Land said how I am proud to talk about Ethiopian Airlines. So I'm defending that with all due respect. So there was 2 3 years ago, so not two, maybe 4 years ago, it could be, the 737 Max has crashed when it was flying from Ethiopia to Kenya, but it happened just few minutes after its takeoff, and it was the fault of the company, this Boeing company. And after they were grounded, actually it come back again and start to produce and sell its Boeings. We Kwame, I think we talked about here, and you wrote an article. I remember that African Airlines should take alternative to switch to the COMAC of China, but that's a big topic for another day. In any case, what I wanted to say is that when that happened,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
West, the
Oh,
mainstream
sorry.
media. Let me finish, and
No,
I will give you the
okay.
floor. The mainstream media, as they are good at doing, wanted to blame it on our good, well, professional pilots. Ethiopian Airlines is not just flying, it gives training for many African pilots, stewardess, men and women. It's and even people from outside of the continent come, and do you know how many Emirates and Qatar and others biggest airlines in the world hire if you are a trainee of Ethiopian Airlines? They kiss your hand. I'm literally saying that. They kiss your hand to take you. Even our market, how do you say, this customer attendants, they get a big money to get hired on it. They know it is the best trainer, the best academy. They are going to change it now in a university level, but it's really the best in everything. And I'm glad that the government's not intervening into it. So when the Western media tried to blame it on our pilots, it made me so not tearful. I really cried watching how the Twitter was flooded by all Africans, not only Ethiopians, to defend. And it makes me really emotional to defend Ethiopian Airlines. And that by itself became a news on the mainstream
Yeah, it
media.
was just them being racist because
Look, the Africans are defending the Ethiopian Airlines. So
no, they
this is
were
to
just being
say not
racist.
only me, but all Africans, take a pride on it. And I'm done.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think they were just being racist. That the Western media was just being racist because this is their company, and Boeing, and Boeing didn't want to take the blame. All right. So what
Yeah.
they came up with, and they say that is these third world countries, they don't know how to, to run these machines. That is the claim which they were trying to come up with. And yet, this software, when Boeing put it in the aircraft, it did not tell the people. All right. It did not tell the pilots. It did not tell the airlines who are running these aircraft, these 737 Max. All right. It did not tell anyone that this software has been put in, and then this is how it is going to operate. And then there's what they call redundancy. The sensor which works with this software, it was supposed to be installed with the redundancy part of it. So it was supposed to have, there are supposed to be like two of them, but they put only one sensor. That if one sensor fails, then the aircraft will be running on the second sensor. That's what they call redundancy in engineering. But they didn't do that. So all the fault was actually on Boeing. Every fault was on Boeing. And we can see this even in the subsequent problems which have come up, that even up to now, Boeing is still in problems. Doors, aircraft doors are blowing off, you know, tires when it is flying are falling down. So up to now, Boeing is in crisis, and that is why its CEO has been changed. They have changed it, and I think they are still looking for a new CEO. So it is Boeing, all was Boeing's fault, and they came to admit this later. But it is after they have spewed out all this racist, rhetoric by their media, claiming that it's because we are from third world countries, therefore that's why we don't know how to operate these machines. And so the other thing which I was talking about, I think, which will come here maybe and talk about at length. I think that Ethiopia Airlines, I think, and Ethiopia itself, it has come of age. It has been around for a very long time. I think it needs to upgrade. It needs to go to the level the fact that it has a huge facility, and even Boeing's headquarters has now gone to Ethiopia in Africa, I think. So I think that it needs to upgrade and start manufacturing, even if it's just mid-range, small aircraft. It should start like with small aircraft, but more so also to partner up with new aircraft manufacturers. We are in BRICS. Ethiopia is in BRICS right now. You have Brazil is manufacturing aircraft. You have Russia is manufacturing aircraft. You have China is manufacturing aircraft. So I think that is important for Ethiopia to jump onto these, these giants, and come up and then partner with these and try to get this technology, at least to represent Africa, in this sector. I think this is a very big topic, I think, which we should come and talk about as we are, going forward, because China is now, manufacturing its own. Is manufacturing its own, and we have Russia is manufacturing the Superjet, Sukhoi Superjet, its own aircraft. We have Embraer, Brazil, and all these are BRICS members. So I think that this is a great opportunity for Ethiopia and Ethiopia Airlines, Ethiopia as a country, and then Ethiopia Airlines, to start, attempting the process of manufacturing aircraft. So I think it would be a great opportunity for the whole African continent.
I 100% agree with that. And we definitely, now this actually necessitates to do a follow-up. I just shared with our audience here the article that you wrote, that how Ethiopia should lead technologically. We have a website, so please go ahead and check it out. But this is an article by Kwame Gonza, so check it. It touches on what he just talked about now. How Ethiopia should also look at, the COMAX C911 of China and producing also this manufacturing these planes. I think the first country, we talked about it like almost, I don't know, several months ago, but after that, Morocco for the first time in Africa, I think it has set up, I don't know, in collaboration with who, it's not Boeing, I don't know with which
Airbus. I think Airbus is from
Airbus.
Europe.
Okay, could be.
Mostly because the major aircraft manufacturing, they are Airbus and Boeing. Airbus from Europe, France, and then Boeing from the United States. Those are the major ones. And of course, we have Embraer from Brazil.
But one highlight was that on that incident, still, how Africans defend Ethiopian Airlines made the mainstream media to come and talk about it as a news, Africans defending Ethiopian Airlines. And then it was as a result of that campaign. Look at the power when we unite. Then
Yeah.
Boeing was forced to ground all the planes in the world because the accident in Ethiopian Airlines was for the second time. If it was just, slipped under the rug like that, blaming it on our pilot, then they will just start to sell, and more accidents we will see. Probably could have happened. But the power of unity, even on social media, I just wanted to highlight on that. I think it's enough for today. Thank you very much, everyone.
It's very important. Unity is very, very important, and that is why we are pushing for a united Africa.
We basically changed the narrative. How powerful is that, really?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So all of you, thank you very much. So we will see you again on Thursday, but do not be surprised if you see us again tomorrow, because we are always tempted, to give you the first spiel before the mainstream media comes and says something that is still our narrative. So that is the intention. Thanks again, and we will see you again on Thursday, if not tomorrow. And go ahead and share the video, like it if you find it informative, which I believe it is. And if you want to help us further, please go ahead to the PayPal accounts link in the description section, and you may do so. Hit that notification bell so that you know when we upload or when we are going live.
Very important.
Yeah,
very,
thank you
very
for
important.
everything.
Thank you very much, Mahlet.
Yeah, ciao. Bye.